Welcome back to this video on running WebdriverIO scripts with Docker. So this is the second video on Docker with the WebdriverIO. In the previous video we discussed about how we can leverage the images provided by Docker Selenium, which is the grid and the nodes, and then kind of create a network where we can kind of use it to communicate from the grid. So that had its own set of disadvantages, but it was executing. So here is a better and the right way for running WebdriverIO scripts in Docker. So before we get into the video, I would like to thank Gamerboy9481, Gaurav Gupta and Syed Hussain. So all your queries and comments is something which keeps me going. So it's kind of an acknowledgement of the hard work I put in. If it is useful to even one person, I would be very happy. So if you found this particular video or any of my videos useful, feel free to kind of put it as a comment or share it or do whatever you want to do with it. Okay, I've also created a Patreon link in case if you are interested with that. Please check out in my description. The main idea of this video is to kind of run this automation script in Docker. And for that to happen, I need to first ensure that this is working in my local machine. So let's verify that. So when I put npm test, I should be able to see a browser getting launched, and then it should log in and then verify the text that is present, which is kind of the sample that they provide by default. Okay, that's good. So what I want to do is so it should be Windows KU. Yeah. So I will run in a headless mode. So you have one script that is running in your local machine in your headless mode as well as in the normal mode. So the first part is ready. So the next thing that I want to do is to run a Docker file. So to run a Docker file, I need to create it, obviously, and inside the Docker file I have provided a few instructions that needs to be done for me to be using or creating that image, for Docker to create that image. So I've used Node as the base, and then I've installed a few libraries and fonts respect to Debian OS, which is the OS for one of the OS for the Linux. And then I've installed npm, and then I have installed Chrome specific version, and then I have went in and copied with the package.json, set up the work directory, and then did an npm install, and that is it. So for me to kind of go with this, I need to do Docker build, and I want to put in a name. So I'll put it as WDIO Chrome, and I want to name it as the first version. That's it, with a dot at the end. So once you do that, the image will be created, and few folks will get this done straight away if you have done that previously. If not, it will take its own time. Since I've done this previously, it is just using the cached version of it. So now let's verify the image has been created. Yep, the version is there. So now I need to run it. So I'll try to run docker run -it in interactive mode, and the name of the particular image is WDIO Chrome and version 1. So yeah, so when I try to run this particular image, it will create a container, and because we have given the entry point as npm run test, it will straight away trigger these scripts, and since it did not have what it wanted, it failed. What was missing is that it was failing to create a session. Why the session is not being created is because the necessary packages were not present. I say that purely because when you try to install, let's say, a Chrome driver, what it does is that it downloads the necessary versions inside this node module, and you can see that in Chrome driver there is a Chrome driver.exe or a Chrome driver file that will be downloaded. Yeah, here it is. So the Chrome driver will be downloaded, and it is specific for a Mac version. And since you are running it inside a Linux version, this version of Chrome driver will not be compatible. And we created an image with the node module as well. Even though we did an npm install, we created with this particular node module here. So that was the problem why the communication was not happening. So let's ignore that. So for ignoring that particular node modules, I need to create a docker ignore file, and inside the docker ignore file I need to give the node modules. So I'll have to ignore this particular section. So this instruction, once it's provided, when I'm building my image again, I will put it as version 2. It will ignore this node modules that is present in this particular location, and then it will create an image with the necessary node modules for Linux. So let's wait for this image to be created. Alright, the image is now created. Let's verify that. Docker images, you can see that version 2 has been created, and that was 9 seconds ago. So now I need to go ahead and run my script, and I want to run it right now with the version 2. So once I do that, I'll see that the script has triggered, and then the execution has begun, and that is it. So this is how you run your automation scripts in Docker. It's as simple and as easy. So now this is just a basic execution, right? I mean, there are quite a few things that I would like to explain on this. So first thing that I would like to explain is, let's say if we have multiple scripts. I have, let's say, 7 scripts, and specifically in example 6, I just go and put in some junk, and then if I say, so what I have done is I've made change on my local machine, and this change will not be present inside the image that we created earlier. So one way is to kind of create another image, to do a Docker build and put in version 3, which is also good, but only thing is that doing that will take a lot of space. I'll anyways show it just for the comparison. So now when I'm trying to create an image, it will go ahead and build all the missing files inside that particular image, and then also it will re-trigger the npm install, so that you create a third version of this particular image. So let's wait for this image to be created, and then I will explain about how this can be done in an easier manner. Alright, so now the image is being created. Now if I go to Docker images, I can see that 9 seconds ago there was version 3, and so if I have to run version 3, it should show there should be about how many, 10 files. Yeah, 10 spec files has to be executed instead of the 1. So you can see that there is multiple triggers that's happening, and for each of that there will be a lot of navigation that needs to happen, and then we will get the result at the end, because the number of files that we have used is a lot when comparing to the previous version of the image. So the previous version of the image will still not have more all these changes. It will still have the only change that we had in that there's just only one spec file that is present inside that particular image. That's not going to change anytime. So I'll show this after this. Yep, so you can see that on file 6 it has failed, and rest of the things have passed. We can verify that here. Yeah, here it is. So copy 6, that's where we changed, and that is failing. So that's as expected. So this is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is that we can mount the volumes. So basically what's mounting volumes is that you have a certain directory on your local machine, and that particular directory has to be shared with the container. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. So how we can do that is, so let's say if I am running with version 2, it won't run all the 9 different versions of this particular file. It'll just trigger one spec file, because that image has only one file inside it, and it will stop at that. It's just one. So now with the same image that we created with one file, what I'll do is that I'll just put in a volume file there, and for volume I need to have my path first. So what I'll do, I'll just put in a pwd to get the path. Once I get the path, I will so here I'll put in the volume. So I don't want to run it on version 3, I want to run it on version 2, because version 2 had only one file. Now I'll show how we can use the changes that we made here in using the same image that we created. So you can see that all my test files are present inside this particular location. So what we'll do, we'll just put in like this. So from this location So what I can do is that I need to map it to the work directory that is present inside the container. So I've said inside the container, when you're creating the image, I want everything to be present inside this location. So that's the instruction work directory. So here I have specified that now whatever is present inside this particular location, I need it to be mapped inside this particular location. So since this location already had one of the files, the priority, there will be a question about which file to choose, because there could be a conflict. So in this situation, one has to kind of remember that whatever file is present inside your local machine will always get the priority. So even if your image has the same file, and what is present inside this particular local machine will be considered. So that is the question answered there. And if I try to run this, what will happen is it will throw an error straight away. Why it will throw an error? That's because of the reason we already discussed. Let's wait for it to throw an error first. Yeah, you can see the exact same set of errors that we encountered at the start coming up again, even though we kind of triggered it with different changes. That was with the same image name we were able to execute previously, but right now it is throwing an error. That's because the node modules have also been copied from this particular location. If you see the command that we ran, we are copying everything, or like we are mounting everything inside this particular folder, whereas the change that we want to kind of mount is only present inside the spec files. So that is the reason why there was a error. So what I'll do now is to kind of restrict this particular location to a more specific section. So inside the test folder there is specs. So if I'm mapping this particular location alone, so I'll do the same thing with the folder inside the container. So you have something called as test/specs, right? So now we can expect this particular scripts to kind of get executed. So even though we are using the image that we created with only one spec file, you can straight away see that it's not only one spec file that has been triggered, it's the whole set of spec files inside this particular folder that has been triggered. And you can see the execution happening, and at the end you can see one failure and 8 pass as expected. So this way what we are trying to achieve is that you can create an image once, and then you can use the concept of volumes and mounting, and that way whatever change you make on your local machine can be straight away executed in Docker without creating an image. So this is more convenient and more easy and apt, I would say, in a lot of ways. Even though creating an old image will have a replica of the section or the code in the previous version, but this seems to be the most obvious choice for me. So that is it. So basically you have seen how we can use Docker to kind of run your automation scripts created in WebdriverIO. So now I'll explain a bit more about how I went about creating the image as I promised at the start of the video. So as you can see, creating your own Docker image involves multiple steps. So what it means is that layering of images on top of one another. So what do you mean by layering? I will show that in detail. So here you can see that for me to create my image, I have used the Docker file, but the Docker file said from a particular version of an image of Node. How that particular image of Node was created was not discussed. We just assumed that the image was there. But how it actually worked is like this. Initially, somebody would have something called as a Debian image, Buster image, and on that particular image, you'll install curl, wget, and the necessary packages with that, and then you have that particular new image created. On that new image, you create something called as get mercurial. You can do all together at the same time, but that's not how it is being present in the GitHub. Obviously, you can do that all together. That makes it a little more easier, but after doing all these things, you get the Builderpack-deb Image, and on this particular Builderpack-deb Image, you install Node with the specific version that you need, and that is how you get the Node image that we saw here. So basically what you see as from node 14.15.3. It's basically using this particular image, and so install browsers and all those things. This what is the green layer that we see here is what basically this. So here we're just installing browsers and necessary files, and then we install the image, and then we create the package, copy the package.json, and then do an npm install to create the image, which is WebdriverIO Chrome version 1, version 2, whatever name that we did. So this is how Docker image is being created. And if you go to the GitHub repository, you can see that that has been explained in detail. So I'll say that the very first thing that we have is Debian Buster. So you can see that this is part of Builderpack-debs. As I explained, Builderpack-debs will be created after you install few things. So first thing that we do inside is to create a curl image, and for creating a curl image we take a Debian Buster as the base, and then we install curl, netbase, wget, CS certificates, and all those things. I'll provide this particular link if you want to explore a bit on that. And if you come back, and here you can see that so Builderpack-debs Buster SCM. So basically you create the SCM after what I showed, and from SCM you create this Builderpack which has all this sections of libraries. And once you create this Builderpack, then with that as the base, you create the node version. You see something called as a Docker node, and inside the Docker node what they do is, like, with that as base they had a few more versions. So here you can see that node 14.15.3 was being used, and they installed that on that particular image, and that will give you the image that we saw here, which is node 14.15.3 Buster. You can see the Buster and node 14. If you want anything different, you can obviously go to Docker node, and then if you want a different version, then you can see that how they have gone about installing it. There are different versions of it. Buster is what seems to be the one they have used it, and if you go to the Docker file, it will say what is the base and what is the version that they want to kind of install. So this is how we go about installing versions, and basically you can skip altogether and straight away come here and then use it like this. So this can be even optimized more, but for now this is just an idea. You can kind of build on it however you want. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is the versioning, and I think Chrome version is something which I spoke about a Node version for now. The next thing is the Chrome version. This seems a bit tricky. I mean, I didn't get it by default. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't kind of get it, but generally speaking, it's not straightforward. If you kind of hit this URL, you'll just get a different version of, you just get a package that kind of comes up. For example, if you just click on this particular version, it will throw you one package, and if you take a link and then if you see, that's when you will have this particular package coming up. But if you see, you can see that the URL has the versioning provided, and this is the section basically that kind of tells us about what version is being present and what is the exact versioning number that we'll have to use and stuff. And you just have to copy a 32-bit or 64-bit package, and then you can kind of change the version here. So you don't have to do all of that. You can just ignore all of that and just change the version here. And if you don't know what version to kind of change, then you have to go here and verify this particular number from this location. Let's say if you go to page 8, it will show you about a 78 point this version. So if you give any number that is not being present here, then obviously that binary will not be downloaded and you won't be able to use it. So that is about using this particular version as well. So now I have completed all I wanted to discuss. If there is anything more that you would like to discuss, or like you want me to discuss, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. If you're new here, consider subscribing, and if you would like to take a look at the other videos I've created, you can visit my channel. You can see that one is related to Docker with the grid and node setup, and the other one is related to the Chrome DevTools protocol and the W3C WebDriver protocol. And if you want to kind of use the code that I have shown in the video, you can visit my GitHub. I will provide the description in the link. So I have placed all the files that we have used. You can take a look at the Docker file if you want to copy and use it somewhere. You can refer this particular location. Thank you.